Welcome to the Leading at the Next Level podcast with Dove Development and Consulting, the show built to provide ongoing support for your leadership journey. So like we've been doing recently, we've got the opportunity today to have a guest interview live with a dear friend of ours, Jordan Rohrer, the owner of the Power Connection. Jordan has been a friend for, close to 10 years. We work closely together on a lot of stuff. Most specifically, what we'll talk about here is the importance of purpose in an organization and the relationship that we've got with them leading into the 2025 Leadership Legacy experience. So, Jordan, as we get started, first off, thanks for being with me and really appreciate the opportunity to chat through this. Share an overview of your professional background, the industry you're in, a little bit about the Power Connection and the people that you serve.
Well, very good. Thank you, Wes. I really appreciated taking this opportunity to be on this podcast with you. And I've really appreciated your and Cindy's relationship over the years. It kind of transcends, the business world. Obviously, we do various things together in the business world, but relationships go deeper than just business. So I really appreciate that. As it relates to my professional background, so I actually started out my career in the ag industry as a dairy farmer. Learned a lot in that space, specifically as it relates to marketing and the national supply and demand of milk and how it relates to, the local economy and how important it is to pay attention to the national scale because it has a direct correlation to what's happening here. More lately, obviously the last 9 years, I've been privileged to lead the Power Connection team. We're an electrical contractor, power generation company, serving the local community to keep the world connected to power. And that includes connecting your devices and lighting, et cetera, in commercial spaces, but also ensuring through the power generation world that we keep the power on for people 24/7, 365.
Yeah. So over the last week or so, I've seen a lot of folks on social media give credit, whether it's to the Power Connection specifically or just the industry as a whole, because with that ice storm we had late last week, it was pretty exciting to see how many people came to really appreciate the importance of backup power, right?
That's been a very interesting space for me over the last 9 years that I've been involved with this. 9 years ago, people were fairly cavalier about it when power goes out. The hysteria and the concern that happens when the power goes out today is just amazing. People have a very, very low tolerance level to not having power. And that's been something unique to me. I haven't tracked anything as far as statistics on it, but there's no question that today people there is zero tolerance for no power.
Yeah, I mean, hey, I'm not going to kid you. I'm a little bit soft. I grew up in the country, and there were times without power. But man, I appreciate power. I like sleeping inside, and I like warmth. So those things are pretty important to me too. So one of the interesting things you guys do a lot. It's not just power generation. You do commercial electrical. You do service. There's a wide breadth, but it's not specific about keeping the lights on. Talk a little bit about, for you specifically, what's that clear purpose for accepting that responsibility and why you do what you do as a business, but that really leads to the scope of the work you're doing.
Sure. So often I try to explain to folks that ask this question or subjects related to it from the business world that we happen to be serving our community in the electrical and power generation space. But my personal motto is that we are here to create a environment that people can be successful where God has called them to be. And if that's on our team, great. If it's somewhere else, then we're equally interested in their success. So that's why we put a lot of emphasis on safety, training, and making sure that when we hire somebody on our team, that it's a good fit. And it doesn't reduce the value of the person if they're not a good fit for us and our team. We're happy to work with them in other capacities as well.
And gosh, Jordan, that's so powerful. I heard a pastor say probably 20 years ago that just because it's not a good fit here doesn't mean one person's right or wrong. It means it's not a good fit. That's okay. It might be better served and he was talking about congregations, but the reality is that applies to business, it applies to every relationship. And like you said earlier, I'm as excited, I'm more excited about the friendship that Cindy and I've been able to develop with you and your team and just as importantly, your family over the last, I don't know, 8, 9, 10 years as the business relationship. Now, I remember the first time we talked on the phone, the very first conversation that you and I had, Cindy and I were at an event for about a week in Orlando, Florida, and it was really around the Live to Lead Harrisonburg event. And we'll come back to that in a second, but we hit it off right from the bat on the importance of searching and seeking out leadership development and training. Talk a little bit about what motivated you initially, because I know we weren't the first place that you had access to it. What was that like for you, and what really led you to pursue that intentionally like you have?
Well, obviously coming from the background that I have where I was working with animals and on the farm, I didn't have a lot of employees. I had a couple. But when I shifted to this role, very quickly I became, it smacked me upside the head that working with people is extremely difficult. It's challenging, but it's also extremely rewarding, which is why I continue to do what I do. So I invest in leadership development and training because I owe it to my team to be the best leader that I can be. And I also invest in leadership training for my team because I also owe it to them to make sure that they have the tools that they need to be able to lead their respective teams. As we're scaling our company, obviously everyone doesn't report to one person, they report to multiple different people. In leadership, there are usually multiple perspectives. There's multiple motivations for why and how scenarios play out. And it's critical for leaders in all space to have the tools in their toolbox to be able to effectively lead their teams through day-to-day scenarios, whatever they may be.
Jordan, I remember when we first started interacting together, I learned a little bit about the power connection and I got to know you personally. And I remember telling you at that point in time, the only reason you don't at that point in time have some of the best respective talented people in your industry knocking on the doors, they don't know about you. Now, fast forward a number of years, gosh, I think you were probably in the 10 to 15 employee space at that point. You guys, as we record this and share it today live on the different social media channels, I think you're around 50 employees and it's continuing to grow. We talked last week in a conversation about scaling the business and what that looks like. And the beauty is I watch that investment into people and they don't get it everywhere. I mean, the bulk of the work Cindy and I've done for the last 10 years specifically, but the investment we made in the 15 years, even leading up to starting our business, was because we had responsibility for people and we didn't have the tools to do it. We had to figure that stuff out. And you're right, that's hard, but by golly, it's some of the most rewarding.
It is.
With that said, our relationship started. I think you and a couple of key team members you had at the time came to the Live to Lead Harrisonburg event that we were hosting. I think it was maybe our third year hosting it at that point. I think it was in 2017. From that point on, you've been a really key partner with us. We've worked on so many different things, and now we're working towards the Leadership Legacy experience on June 13th. Talk to me about why that's been something that you've been intentional about, because it's not just, hey, let me throw money at something. We've really developed a strong partnership.
Sure. Well, I view both of these events as opportunities to bring my team together in a larger event. These events tend to spark an energy, and they also give exposure to world-class speakers that we don't always have the opportunity to expose ourselves to unless we just invest in going on YouTube or something like that. But what these events do is they expose them to the world that's much larger than the Power Connection, and it also exposes them to other teams and other businesses that are investing in that leadership for their companies. Gives networking opportunities. It gives us, it also exposes which companies that we really want to work with. Not saying that if you don't come to this, we don't want to work with you, but companies that invest in their team are definitely easier to work with. A secondary reason I participate and I'm part of it, I know that there are other companies, smaller companies, that may not be able to invest to the level and the degree that's necessary to put on these kind of events. And they're good people as well. And I love giving back to the community and allowing these types of events to come to our community so that everybody in the community can experience this. And, instead of shipping, our company or running them off to some big event center in some big city somewhere. So I love seeing this type of event come into our town. And so I want it to continue to happen.
Well, we never take it for granted. We appreciate it deeply, and that really falls in line with why Cindy and I have worked to host it and create a bigger event that reaches more people over the years. Because I remember, I'm guessing it was 2002 or 2003. I went to the first safety leadership conference. I was working in the safety space at that point in time. It was in San Antonio, Texas. And I got that exposure, just like you're saying. But I worked for a global manufacturing company, and they had the bandwidth. They had the resources to be able to send me to that. And I got huge exposure to that many of those folks I stayed in touch with. I got mentorship from, I learned from, because I was in my mid-20s at the time, for the next 10, 15 years following. And it was a resource that I had. And that's what we always saw. How can we do that for the folks that we live with and we work with on a routine basis? So again, that's just one more thing that we get to be in lockstep on. Jordan, I feel like I know the scope of the Power Connection pretty intimately. We've worked closely together. I don't know that many folks in the community understand it quite to that level, though. What would you like the community to know about you and the company that they probably don't recognize or realize?
Well, one of the things that I want the community to know is the Power Connection is a community of your neighbors that works very hard at a trade and seeking to become better and better each and every day at what we do. We take our role in connecting our community to power and maintaining power systems extremely serious. We know that there are significant liabilities that come into play if power goes off. And we care about that because this is our community. And so that's something I really want our community to know, is how much we care about, making sure that the quality of work that we do and ensuring that we're responsive, that the power stays on for our customers when we need to. And don't ever forget, we're your neighbors.
Yeah, and it's not the company that you pay your electric bill to, although you used to get a lot of calls for that, right?
Yep.
So share a recent example of a project that you, with the Power Connection, a campaign, something that you guys have really spearheaded to make a direct and tangible impact on the community around you.
Yeah, I didn't know quite how to answer this question because I didn't really have a major project. But one thing I wanted to let our community know, that is kind of our philosophy behind what we do, because we value giving back to the community, and we are involved in a number of different organizations where we do give back. But just to give a little bit of a window into how we do that, I really, really, really encourage our teams to be involved in community organizations, nonprofits, join boards, join those organizations, whether it be religious type organizations or otherwise. I really strongly want my team to be involved. Okay. So, and we support them in two different ways. If one of my teammates comes and says, I'm part of a organization and it fits our core values, we support them with financial donations. And secondarily, we give them space. We give them time off. We give them, whatever's necessary so that they can personally invest. So that is our philosophy behind our giving back to the community. Is we want somebody on the Power Connection team to be involved in that organization versus just throwing money at an organization that we don't have any connection to. So I just wanted the community to know that, yeah, there's a lot of organizations from rec leagues and um, well, I won't get into all the organizations, but there are quite a few that we're involved with that our team is participating in, and we put money and time behind it.
Yeah, and it's got a wide reach. I mean, you mentioned ag earlier. One of the first interactions that Cindy and I had with your team away from the power connection was through the Virginia Poultry Federation. I know you've been active with that for years, and there's just so many, be it the county fairs and when the kids are selling their animals and so on. I know you guys do a lot with that, and there's just countless ways that are there. And I would say that trickle down effect's pretty significant, because I've watched you mentioned your core values. I've watched how you try to align that, but what you do corporately and what you do individually. I mean, while the space that you work in is in the construction space, it's in the power generation, I also know you're involved at the county level in some of the administrative processes and so on. And that's certainly not because it's a whole lot of money that comes with it or it's a whole lot of fun. It's really out of how do you serve, right?
Right.
With all that being said, Jordan, talk a little bit about the purpose of your organization and how it really aligns with your individual values and purpose, because you've already mentioned the company core values. Talk about how you've worked to make those align.
Right. So our culture is built on providing three key elements that I believe that a person needs to be successful. And my team is probably tired of listening to me talk about this, but I personally feel like a person needs to be respected, and a person's value is established because God created you, and we are obligated to respect each person regardless of their position or their actions. The second one is a challenge. Each person needs to wake up and have a reason to get out of bed every morning. They got to have a purpose in their role, and they got to be able, sometimes you got to help them understand what that is. So that's something that we're pretty important here, that we want people to understand that there's value in doing what you do for the power connection. And the third thing is compensation. And, while the financial aspect of your role and being compensated is very important, perhaps the most important thing is having clear and honest feedback on your performance, whether it be that you need to improve or if you're doing a great job. You need that clear and honest feedback, and we're committed to giving that to each team member here.
Yeah, Jordan, I've often heard folks say, "Hey, I don't need all that thank you or that recognition and so on." And I do a lot. We talk a lot about communication and behavior styles, and the reality is maybe they don't want it in front of a team, in front of a group of people. But I've never seen somebody that doesn't appreciate a pat on the back saying, "Hey, man, I appreciate the work you're doing," and that's. I love hearing that. The folks that I interact with on your team that say, "Hey, Jordan's frequently coming through and checking in on us. Hey, what can I do to help you do your job better? What do you need from me? Appreciate what you're doing." I don't know that people get tired of that. So I would challenge you to keep on talking about that three-legged stool, my friend. It makes a difference for them. What advice would you give somebody that's young in a professional role, really looking to advance their career, wanting to develop not that title, that supervisor or manager, but really to earn leadership with the teams that they're working with?
So I kind of say this because I just recently happened to me. Stay humble, or you will get humbled. But focus on the team. Empower them, train them, help them to remove barriers to their success, and the results will give evidence to how you're doing. Okay, the financial metrics that you may set up for your company, they will give you evidence of how you're doing. If you focus solely on the results, you may be successful short term, but it's probably not going to be sustainable long term, because the fundamentals behind what's going on are not going to be there to sustain it long term. So I would really strongly stay humble and focus on their team. Empower them to to be able to be successful.
Yeah, you said it early on, the relationship is an important part of any business aspect. I'm extremely thankful for the friendship, the relationship that we've had over the last close to a decade, like I've said a few times. But gosh, it's such an important part in that leadership role too, right? I mean, it's not about cracking the whip and saying, you got to do this because I said so, because that's only going to work as long as you're over their shoulder cracking the whip and saying, because I said so. But boy, staying humble and developing, growing people, a lot of the things that you've shared about here, it catches up. It's one of those deals we can't outgive God. And that's kind of the perspective we've got to have when we're sowing into other people and helping to develop them. And by golly, it helps us develop too. As we bring this to a close, what would you like to share and kind of leave folks to think about? Because again, as we record this, we're about 4 months away from the Leadership Legacy experience, and this will be used in a couple different ways leading into it. What would you like to challenge folks with?
Well, I just want to challenge people to make sure that you look into your own life and make sure that your purpose for why you do what you do aligns with what you do. And that integrity that will come forth out of that is going to be invaluable when you're dealing with conflict, whether it be with other, customers or dealing with other vendors, etc. Make sure that your actions and your core values and who you say that you are in strict alignment. It'll go a long ways to reaping big rewards long term.
Yes, sir. Jordan, thank you for taking the time to do this with me. I know you've got a crazy full schedule, especially this week with some of the things you've got in play. Thanks for taking the time to do it. Hang with me as I bring this to a close, and we'll go from there. So everybody out there, thanks for listening to the Leading at the Next Level podcast. If you'd like to go into deeper into anything that we've shared here, reach out to us. We've got a full program called Leading at the Next Level that's got more than 150 digital lessons. We do live lessons in that every week. If you've got interest in a 45-day all-access trial at no cost, send us an email at admin@dove-development.net, and we'll hook you up with that. Most importantly now, though, I'll challenge you when you're accessing this, don't miss your chance as we're sharing this in mid-February to get super early bird pricing on registration for the 2025 Leadership Legacy Experience. Wherever you're accessing this, there should be a link to that. And we look forward to seeing you in person very soon. Make it a great day, and God bless.